Do you confuse the words beside and besides, or economic and economical? And do you know that these three examples all have different meanings? Sometimes, sometime, and sometime. A lot of my students make these mistakes. English has a lot of words that sound similar but have different meanings, and using the wrong one can change the meaning of your sentence. In this video, I'm going to clear up some of the most commonly confused words in English. I will explain the differences, and I will give you some example sentences so that you can use them correctly in your conversations and in your writing. Let's get started. What is the difference between every day and every day? Every day means it happens daily. You know that one. I go for a walk every day. You should practice your English every day. But every day is an adjective, and we stress the first word. We say it like this: every day. It's one word. It refers to something that is common, ordinary, or routine. For example, we can say, she likes to paint everyday objects. Crime is an everyday occurrence in that neighborhood. Please use simple everyday language. We often say everyday life, everyday activities, everyday objects, everyday language. So remember, every day we stress the second word. Every day we stress the first word. Let's go on to the next one. What is the difference between sometimes, sometime, and sometime? Sometimes is the most common one. I'm sure you use it all the time. It means occasionally, not always. I sometimes go out to eat. She sometimes works on Saturdays. And sometime means a period of time, an amount of time. It took me some time to finish the project. I need some time to think about it. And this is the one that most people have trouble with, sometime. And that means an unspecified time in the future or in the past. For example, we can say, let's have coffee sometime next week. He moved to New York sometime in 2019. When did it happen? It happened sometime last month, and this is a common way to use it. I hope to see you again sometime, and maybe you learned this word sometime in the past. So remember, sometimes, sometime, and sometime. We stress the first word in that last one, sometime. Let's look at the difference between these two words, farther and further. Farther refers to physical distance. Use farther only when you're referring to distance. For example, we have big, bigger, the biggest, and we have far, farther, the farthest. And we can use it this way. The beach is farther than I expected. He ran 5 miles, but she ran even farther. And further means more or additional. We need to discuss this issue further. He pursued further studies in biology, and we commonly use it this way. Do you have any further questions? So remember, farther is related to distance, and further means more. Let's go on to the next pair of words. Do you know the difference between these two words? Classic versus classical. Classic means high quality, or great, or memorable, or something that is a standard of excellence. For example, we can say, that film is a classic. A black suit is always a classic choice for formal events. I want to read all of the classics. What does that mean? All of the classics, all of the great books, the great literature. We often say a classic example, and that means a perfect example of something. That's a classic example of bad decision making. And classical is a style of music. For example, Beethoven played classical music. It's also related to the cultures of ancient Greece and Rome. For example, we can say, I'm interested in classical architecture. Let's go on to the next two words. What is the difference between these two words? Historic and historical. If something is historic, it's an important event in history. The moon landing was a historic event. This is a historic moment. We are witnessing a historic moment. And historical is something related to history, belonging to an earlier period of history. For example, we can say, I enjoy reading historical novels. The museum has a collection of historical documents. That film is historically accurate. Do you know the difference between the words economic and economical? Have you been using them correctly? Economic is related to the economy or finances. We can say economic growth, an economic advisor, or an economic theory. And economical means cost-effective, something that saves you money. For example, this car is very economical. You can save a lot of money on gas. Going by train is more economical than going by airplane. But you can also use it this way. I try to be economical with my time. And that means I'm careful about how I spend my time. And you can say to economize. We need to start to economize. And that means we need to start to save our money. We need to be careful about our money. I'd rather economize on clothes than on food. Let's go on to the next two words. What is the difference between these two words, beside and besides? Do you ever make that mistake? Beside means next to. For example, she sat beside me. There is a lamp beside the bed. And besides means in addition to. Besides English, she also speaks French and Spanish. I don't feel like going out. Besides, it's raining. Besides football, do you like any other sports? What is the difference between these two words? First, let's make sure that you can pronounce them correctly. Clothes, cloths. Clothes, cloths. Most native speakers of American English don't really pronounce that TH. They simply say clothes, and once in a while you will hear a very slight TH, clothes. Let's listen to some native speakers pronouncing it.
Make sure your clothes are appropriate.
And you might get up and put on your clothes and do your makeup.
I had 3 suits of clothes.
So he was there at the funeral in ripped clothes.
And of course, clothes is what you wear. I washed my clothes. I hung my clothes in the closet. And remember, the E is silent. We don't say clothes. We say clothes. And now let's pronounce this word. Let's pronounce it in the singular first. Cloth, cloth. And in the plural, it's cloths, cloths. In that case, we do pronounce the TH, cloths. Cloth is material or fabric or textile. For example, pieces of fabric. I use a cloth to wipe the table. And this is a tablecloth. The suit is made of fine cloth. The suit is made of expensive cloth. Let's say those two words again. Clothes, cloths, cloths. Do you know the difference between these two words? Continual versus continuous. If something is continual, it happens repeatedly over time, but with breaks in between. For example, the continual interruptions made it hard to focus. She had continual headaches last month. The nurse continually checked the patient's temperature. And if something is continuous, it happens without stopping. It continues without interruption. For example, we can say, the rain was continuous for 3 days. It didn't stop at all. The old refrigerator makes continuous noise. It's continuously noisy. So, continual is when something starts and stops, starts and stops. But continuous things are never ending. Do you know the difference between these two expressions? In a way, in the way. In a way means to some extent or in a certain manner. For example, in a way, learning a new language is like solving a puzzle. It's somehow similar. It's similar in a way. I agree with you in a way, but I still think we should try a different approach. And in the way means blocking something or obstructing something. Something is an obstacle. For example, we can say, could you move your chair? It's in the way of the door. She tried to help, but she just got in the way. It wasn't helpful. She got in the way. I can't see the TV. You're in the way. Please move out of the way. Move out of the way. You're in the way. Let's look at the next two words. How do we pronounce these two words? Are they pronounced the same or are they pronounced differently? They are pronounced differently. The first one has an A sound and the second one has an A sound. A, bath, bathe. And the TH sounds are also pronounced differently. The first TH is voiceless, th, bath. And the second TH is pronounced with the voiced sound, the, bathe. You will feel a vibration right here in your vocal cords, bathe. To bathe is a verb, and you probably use bath much more frequently than to bathe, right? For example, I take a bath. I take a bath in the bathtub. Are you going to take a shower or are you going to take a bath? And what does to bathe mean? It means to wash yourself or to wash somebody. For example, she is bathing her baby. We can also say, we bathed in the lake. And what is this called? A lot of my students don't pronounce it correctly. It's a bathing suit. It's not bathing, it's bathing. It's a bathing suit. And what are these people doing? They are sunbathing. Sunbathing. Let's pronounce the two words again. Bath, bathe. Make sure you pronounce the voiced TH. Make sure your vocal cords are vibrating. Bathe. When you're in an office building or an apartment building, do you ever confuse the ground floor versus the first floor or the second floor? In the United States, the first floor and the ground floor are the same. It's the street level. And maybe in your country, the first floor is above the ground. It's what the US and Canada would consider the second floor. And how about in your country, the floor above the ground? Is that called the first or the second floor? In hotels and in office buildings in the United States, sometimes you will see the letter L, and that means lobby, and that's the first floor. That's the ground floor. But remember, in British English, in England and all over Europe, and in many other parts of the world, the first floor is actually above the ground. It's what we consider the second floor. So be careful about this one. This can be confusing when you're in an office building or when you're in your hotel. How many of these words were new for you? Were you making some mistakes before you watched this video? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching, and keep practicing your English. Take your English to the final level of fluency with my online courses. The American Accent course, the 400 Advanced Words You Must Know for Fluent English course, and the Phrasal Verbs for Fluent English course. Go to accurateenglish.com.